what's up, everybody? I'm Justin Young. He is Josh Tech. Welcome to Monday for the Fast Break. And in today's episode, we've got a Hoop Scene Elite Preview review. Say that 17 times in a row. It should be a lot of fun. We have the best players from the class of 2026 and 2027 at the legendary Swanee Sports Academy for our annual fall preview camp for the top underclassmen, the best freshmen and sophomores that are in the Southeast, for the majority of them, guys that we invited. It was a really good camp. We wanted to make sure that we ended our camp season off on a bang. And by all accounts, Josh Tech, it sounds like we did.
Yep. That was a really good time in the gym. I had a really good time. I don't know. We did end up.
I haven't heard you that excited. Yeah, I called you yesterday, and I haven't heard you that excited since like you went to Louisville and saw like the best indie band in a small club. Like literally, you were at peak.
Yeah, this was like, this was one of those days where you just watch certain players and you kind of like professionalism goes out the window and you just revolt. you revert back to being a fan, and that's kind of what like we're all in this for. Like, it's kind of boring to be a stodgy old like professional. And it's just more fun to be like, yes, I love this. This reminds me of why I'm here,
That's gonna be my new Twitter bio, stodgy old professional.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes you hear a podcast and people sound robotic and stuff like that, but that's just like, I liked being in there being like, oh my God, look at this play, look at that play, just like being like enjoying the moment.
I might make a whole line, stodgy old professional. That might just be my new thing, which
it's a good persona. It's a good persona to have.
I mean, I wear it well. And you should just get one that just says "Yay!"
Yeah. Hey, honestly. Also, I have to bring this up. I woke up today and it was cold in Atlanta. It's like, I don't know. It was like 49 degrees, and I'm feeling really good off of that too. This is like,
well,
fall.
I'm really happy for you, truly, that is the case. Because let's see if we can get that on there. Yeah. I don't feel as great. It's going to be 101 today here in Arizona.
No. So. Our fall preview camps ended and true fall began. So this feels great.
I'm sweating. I'm trying to wear it into existence. Anyway, no one came here for the Weather Channel. We're here for the Elite Preview. So I'm glad that you're experiencing the fall. I don't know.
The weather's elite and the players were elite. Boom.
This is summer 2, part 2. We don't really have fall. Anyways, all right, listen, we had so many good guys. I want to talk about really like the trending players, and I think we certainly had that every year for the Elite Camp we do. I mean, you look back, Isaiah Collier and Scoot Henderson, and you go down the line, all these great players. Yeah, forever, right? Like you go back to Jaylen Brown and Malik Beasley and anyways, I could go on and on and on and on of all these great players that have played at our Elite Preview Camp over the years. Basically, if you're a player from the state of Georgia that's in the NBA, you've played at the Elite Preview pretty much, at least for like the last 10 years. And this year's camp, I feel like we had the bar set really, really high. And Josh, like, who set the bar? I mean, like, I don't think there's any secrets here.
It's a guy that I feel like I've been beating the drum for forever. I've been telling our national peers, hey, you're missing out on this guy. You need to be watching this guy. I think the guy that kind of captivated the gym as soon as he walked in was Mustafa Diop. I mean, he's been doing that for as long as he's been in Georgia, for as long as he's been a prospect that we've known about. Like, he's just been, he started off his career as being just like, that's an interesting 6'11" underclassman. You know what I'm saying? Like, it was like, all right, he looks the part. And now, like, his game has slowly evolved where, he started off, then he evolved into being like, all right, this guy's a really good defensive prospect. And now it's like, all right, this guy's just like putting it all together slowly but surely. And we're kind of seeing his progression materialize in front of our eyes. And it's been really fun to watch.
Yeah. And that's where the bar gets set, right? No question about it. I mean, Mustafa Diop is a player that I think we can confidently say is a top 10 national prospect in this really good 2026 class.
Yeah.
I had a chance to see a lot of the great 2026 players out at the Border League over the weekend. And I don't have any question that Diop is firmly planted within that group and will be a player, I think, when it's all said and done, as our next great Georgia McDonald's All-American and elite, type of player to come out of the great city of Atlanta. So what did I don't think we need to wax too much poetic on Diop and on the things that he does, but let's rewind it to a year ago to where he is now. Where do you feel like you've seen the biggest like progression for him?
I would say that on what is it, Sunday? Yeah, Sunday specifically, he was matched up in the first game of the day, first game scrimmages of the day. He was matched up against two other big men who were, pretty substantially, big men. Like they were 6'9", 6'7", really strongly built or whatever. And Diop was out on the perimeter and just cooking them off the bounce. Like he was taking people off the bounce and just powering to the rim. It was really, that was the progression. I was like, oh my God, he's taking the next step.
Yeah.
And like, I agree completely that he is like right now, we've behind the scenes have started building out our 2026 rankings or whatever nationally. And, we're still sorting through it all, but like, yeah, he is a guy that's certainly going to be, up there, highly regarded in some form.
It's funny. Like in my entire career in Georgia, there's always been a yin and yang big man. There was like, I go back to guy on the wall had JJ Hickson, right? And then Howard and Trey Tompkins and like that group. Yeah. And then you had even more recently, like, and you can argue that neither one of them are bigs or whatever. You had Chumo Keke and Rayshawn Hammonds. And then like when they were coming up, Ike Obiagu was a huge prospect and Wendell Carter. And like, there was always like a player for another guy to match up with. I'm really curious to see like who's going to be the yin to the yang for Mustafa Diop when it comes to big men in the state of Georgia. Like it may not.
Yeah. I'm just not sure that I just like in that same capacity. I'm not sure that that's going to exist, just because like he can do a lot with the ball. Like
sure,
he's more skilled than you would expect at this young of a stage. Like and he's still got plenty of room to grow as far as all of that goes. But like you can watch it from you take a month off from watching him, you can see what he's added into his bag. You know what I'm saying? Like he's just. It's just consistent like professionalism, like good head on his shoulders. Like it's all like he's just got it.
It reminds me a lot of, I mean, even for guards, like I think in Georgia, like when we always have like even Scoot Henderson and Isaiah Collier when they were young, like would battle each other, right? And like there was always like this pairing of guys that they could kind of go head to head. Derek Favors was really the last guy that I felt like was on an island by himself. And Diop might be that next guy too. And Derek Favors at one point was the #1 player in the country, and it was a high lottery pick, and certainly had a great career at Georgia Tech, and then was a great NBA veteran. So like I'm curious to see like with Diop, like it's funny, like and I won't spend too much more time on Diop, but I did get this text from Garrett Tucker, who has been to a lot of our elite camps over the last 10 years, and Garrett said this. I know you two had a lot of conversations. He said, it wouldn't surprise me if Mustafa Diop was the most naturally gifted player that Des Eastman from Game Elite's ever been able to coach and train with. And I thought, man, that was a really bold statement considering all the players that he's played with. Obviously, I'm Team Jaylen Brown. Like I think he's the gold standard for where within the Game Elite program, the best players I've ever played. But I thought that was a really bold statement. Garrett's not the type of guy, and we know him really well. Garrett's not a let me throw something crazy statement out there on the wall and see if it's
he's not.
No, that's not his MO. So I thought that was like really, really interesting. That's what Garrett had to say. So anyways, we got a ton of stuff on Mustafa Diop coming up on the website on hoopsing.com. And I know that we'll have him, really covered quite well this season on hoopsing.com. Let's, we're going to talk about like the top overall performers. And of course, we're going to talk about some players from our Hoopsing Association. And we're going to talk about some other risers and whatnot. Here on this podcast. But another guy that really kind of jumped out was Kevin Savage. And I just love it because like I want to use the headline Keeping It Savage or Savage mentality. I have all these headlines. I actually had a roommate in college whose last name was Savage. So I've had him saved up for 30 years now that I'm excited to kind of roll them out now. But Kevin Savage, where did he impress you the most, and what kind of season would you anticipate for him having coming up?
Oh man, he was making ridiculous passes and ridiculous plays with the ball. He's on the same Game Elite team as Mustafa Diop. Savage is at 2027. He was playing up on the Mustafa Diop's team. Man, he is so good with the ball, so advanced with the ball. I mean, I hate to be like hyperbolic or just kind of saying statements, to say statements, but he is an elite passer. Like he was making passes that reminded me of Isaiah Collier. He was just so good with the ball and scored it well. He's already like, he's not the biggest guard, but he's got like a strong body. When he goes up against contact, he doesn't like flail around or flop around or anything like that. He goes up strong through contact. He can finish, he can shoot, he can do a lot. He checks a lot of boxes that you want out of a point guard. He was just fantastic. He was just, had the ball on a string and he was kind of a wizard with it. It was really fun to watch. Really loved Kevin Savage. And he's going to be playing at Wheeler this coming season as a freshman. I don't know what his immediate impact is going to be because he's got Coda Settle, he's got Lamarion Lewis, he's got other good guards ahead of him in the pecking order, but he is certainly going to be seeing the floor. He's certainly going to be making an impact. I just don't know how profound it's going to be right off the bat, but you're going to be seeing a lot of Kevin Savage over there at Holt Road.
You know, Wheeler U, I feel like Wheeler U, Wheeler is becoming a little more like point guard here recently, where it used to be known as more bigs and wings and stuff like that. So it's interesting to see like this evolution of that position at the school. They have
a lot of really great nationally like point guards, underclass guards that should be regarded nationally coming up. Whether it's this season or next season or the season beyond, these guys are all going to be just fantastic players.
Let me go back to Diop for one second, because you did bring up. Is it fair to say that Isaiah Collier is your favorite player that you've ever covered? Isaiah Collier in the state of Georgia?
He has to be. Like, right? My career hasn't been very long, so like my career kind of mirrors Isaiah Collier's career to a degree. So I kind of got to see all of his highlights. And
that statement just is amazing.
I'm just a wizard with it. I'll be seeing you at USC. I'm gonna be his beat writer over there in sunny California, and I'm just gonna follow him around in the NBA.
I like
just where he goes, I go. At this point.
Okay, so here's my question then: Could Mustafa Diop take that place when it's all said and done?
Potentially, yeah. I mean, he already is like emerging as just a guy that I love to watch. Like, I mean, I've just seen him a ton, and whenever he's playing somewhere at a camp or something like that, I usually try and make it out, just because like when you have a player this special in your backyard, you gotta do your due diligence. Like it's kind of the same thing with Ace Bailey. Like whenever there's a big Ace Bailey game on, I try and go. Like obviously there's some where I'm like, all right, I know he's just gonna kind of.
Is that game gonna happen this year? Are they gonna have McEachern versus the Walker School?
I don't know, but that'd be really fun to watch. I don't know how much those two would spend matched up against each other, because Mustafa's more around the basket and Ace is more around the perimeter. But I mean, at some point in time, they would go head to head, and that'd be really fun to watch.
Yeah, let's make that happen. That was my Wayne's World. Anyways, I don't know if anybody gets that.
Yeah,
there you go. Yeah, thank you. There was a guy. Where did I see? He was wearing a Wayne's World hat over the weekend. I was like, oh, right on.
That's cool.
Nice. All right. Who else really stood out to you as far as like the top overall guys that we had at camp?
Yeah, I mean, guess what, Gwinnett County? There's another rideout coming up, and Malik Rideout was great throughout the entire day. I know that he was great because Jesse Bird, Mekhi McKinney, and Garrett Tucker all came up to me at some point and be like, he's the best player here right now. Like he played after a game, they were all raving. Like I think it might have been the first game of the day or something like that, but they were all raving about how well he played. And I didn't get to see that game. He was, apparently according to them he was just cooking as far as like scoring, shot making, and all that. When I did get to see him later on, he was just attacking the basket, getting fouled, finishing through contact. He was just in attack mode. Malik Rideout is a guy that you're going to need to know out of Central Gwinnett. He's a guy that's already made his rounds, kind of, he's started to generate some buzz, but I think he's going to really take a step forward this coming high school season.
He's been coming to our camp since he was a little kid. With his brother was playing. His dad coached some of our camps back in the day. So, I mean, he's literally grown up at a preview camp, knows what it's all about, knows what it takes to get out there and attack. I was really happy to see his name come across our registrations. I'm like, man, I can't believe he's already old enough to go and compete at this level. But I'm good. I'm really glad to see that he himself was now able to wear this uniform for a couple of years now in the elite preview. So it's fun. It's fun too. Like when I'm going through the headshots and I'm seeing we've probably need to get some new jerseys for the camp, but it's cool to think who's worn those jerseys over the years and had really good weekends. So it was I don't
know. I kind of like being like, oh, this is the jersey that Jaylen Brown wore. I kind of like that kind of idea. You know what I'm saying? I don't know. I think it's
absolutely cool. Okay. I don't know where to go with the next one. Let me ask you about. Forgive me, Taj Sharagba. I hope I'm not mispronouncing your last name. If I am, shoot me a DM. Correct me, because I have a feeling we're going to be saying your name a lot over the next 4 years. What did you like about the big guy from Woodstock High School, Josh?
He is so powerful. Like when you look at him, you're immediately like, yeah, that's a guy that you need to know. He just looks the part. He plays the part. And what I love about watching him play is that you could tell that he's still so far away from being a finished product as far as skill wise goes, and just there's so much that he has to improve on, which is great at this stage because that means he's not done yet, right? We're not seeing the best Taj Saragba. He's a guy that, like, he impressed me so much as a driver. Like, he caught the ball in the wing and made powerful drives to the basket. He didn't always finish, but he made those drives. And I was like, oh man, when those go in more often than not, you're going to be dangerous. And then when he gets the ball around the basket, he's so physically imposing and so athletic and so long that he can kind of just bully people around, and he can finish athletically above the rim. He was a guy that really caught, I'd seen him before, but he was the guy that caught other people's attention who hadn't seen him before. Like, just upon looking at him, they'd be like, who the hell is that guy?
Yeah.
And he's a guy that I know 2027 is like, we haven't even published our 2026 rankings yet. So it's so far away from, 2027 rankings, but he was a guy that I just went ahead and shot some of our more national peers a text being like, hey, you just want to have this guy in your back pocket in the future, just because he's got it. He's got something for you.
Well, it's cool to see Woodstock, right? Like, as a school now that's got like a pretty high, pretty interesting young guy coming up the ranks.
Yeah, yeah. He is so physically mature. Like, when people that see him in person, you're gonna be like, whoa, this guy is, who the hell is that guy? Like,
hey, listen, man. I lived up 575 for like a decade, and I had to travel a long ways. Like, I went to Cherokee a lot, like Chris Singleton stuff, and Jordan Usher. But man, there weren't a lot of players up that corridor. Now I leave, and all of a sudden, like, all these players are popping up all over 575. So
yeah, I think as the city expands, we're starting to get more players out on the periphery. Like, you could start seeing like some of those northern counties start being like, oh, there's here's a D2 prospect. Here's it's gonna start keep growing from there. You know what I'm saying? To where there was no prospect, now the prospect is starting to level up to blah, 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 blah.
Sure.
And then you start getting like really
well, I mean, you can go on the east side of town now too, to our next school, North Oconee, with Justin Wise is another young guy that North Oconee out there in the Athens area, like as the city grows even further on the east side, guys like Justin Wise kind of pop up. There's an it factor to him too, even as a young player, that you may see him for a possession or two, and you're like, oh, I need to probably watch this guy for like a full game. And I don't think that you leave disappointed. Was he, I don't want to call him a great surprise, but what made him really stand out in this setting?
I don't know. He was a surprise to me. I didn't know about him beforehand. Sure. So yeah, he was a surprise to me. But he's so smooth. Like, his game is so smooth. That's the best way to describe it. That was the word, the adjective, the descriptor that kept following him throughout the day. Like, no matter who I was talking to, there was a lot of, Atlanta basketball luminaries in the building. So like, it would always be like, oh man, number 19 is looking really smooth, blah, 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 blah. And that just kind of kept following. It was like, that's the perfect way to describe it. His shot making immediately stood out. He was cooking from three, and he's a pretty good sized guard at like 6'3", 6'4" ish. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, his ability to shoot the ball was great. His ability to make plays, like, he just did a lot. Like, you could tell that he is going to be a prospect that's going to, do the Athens area proud. Like, it's nice to see some guys out of the, immediate,
it's great,
Atlanta metro area kind of that caliber. And he's a guy that looks like he's going to be great for years to come. He's going to be a name that people need to know, and all of that.
Josh, he's Ben Shepherd. He's Ben Shepherd.
I could see that. Yeah.
Like, I remember watching on film. I was like, okay. Like, Ben Shepherd was that same way, like really young, long, but knew how to play. I'm like, I was really glad to see his name pop up on the list, because
he was great. In the last game of the day, I was watching him with Garrett, and Garrett was like, oh yeah, I was telling him, you need to see this guy, because I got to see him and Garrett didn't, and vice, we had a couple players like that. I was like, you need to watch number 19 and let me know what you think. And he was like, he made a couple plays. It was like, oh yeah, Garrett was like, oh yeah, he's pretty good. And then as the game kept going, he was like, man, like, he's once again, he's really smooth.
Yeah, well, that's why we run the camp, right? To get guys like that from North Oconee into a stage and get them a chance to really kind of jumpstart into the season. So,
yeah,
Alexander High School is not a school that needs any sort of, well, I don't want to say no pub, but like, we know about Alexander. We know they're a program that's going to pump out some great players. Micah Goodlow was a player that I think caught y'all's attention too. What did he do to make him stand out to y'all?
I mean, he's just so good as a point guard with the ball. Like, he's strong. He gets to his spots. He could score. He could pass, distribute. He just does checks a lot of those boxes from the point guard position. I'm really looking forward to seeing what he does with Alexander this season. He's a guy that can really, use the high school season, use the winter to make a name for himself. I know Garrett raved about him. This was one of the guys that Garrett got to see more than I got to see. Yeah. But like, when Garrett's raving about a guy, when I'm getting texts from court 2 and I'm on court 3, like, someone's doing something well. Whenever I looked over, it seemed like Goodlow was making a play. He's definitely a guy that's going to be making some waves this winter.
Yeah, and Alexander, you know there's a toughness layer there if you play for that program
sure.
that you're going to have that. Jason Nathaniel, by the way, played really well. Oh no, he's not Alexander. Sorry,
No,
I'm thinking.
he's a linear guy.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about some Hoop Scene Association guys. We had a lot of good young guys on our platform this year. We wanted to make sure that they got into camp, not just from Georgia, but really from all over the Southeast. And
yeah,
man, it was awesome to see these guys, and it was cool to see like all these players in the same gym at the same time. From the Hoop Scene Association point of view, Josh, who really kind of got focused in and really kind of delivered from your point of view?
So Ivan Puckett was like one of the trending names of the day, regardless of like where you've played at or who
Yeah.
you were associated with or whatever. Like he was one of the trending names of the day. When I say that there was like Atlanta basketball luminaries, they're just like a lot of the guys that you see around that you're like, oh yeah, that guy's a name that you need to know around Atlanta. And a lot of those guys were the ones asking me like, whoa, like who is this kid? And I was like, oh yeah, North Carolina kid, all this. I mean, he gets off the ground so fast and so high. Like he is so athletic. And he also showed his shot making, showed defensive upside. Like he just showed a lot of the stuff that we saw from him this spring, but against, the highest caliber of his age group. You know what I'm saying? Like he shined on this stage. It was just really great to see.
He was also with Lion Chaser G, right, for the last 2 seasons, dominated. I would argue last year that both him and Nick Nair, even though they're on the underclassmen platforms, you could argue that they may have been in our top 10 overall for the Hoop Scene Association this past season easily. Zion Puckett reminds me, we talked about this on the phone yesterday when camp was over. He reminds me a lot of Shawnee Brown, who played for Southeast Elite that went on to Wake Forest and Michigan. I think he's even on a summer or opening roster or training camp roster now in the NBA. But it reminds me a lot of Shawnee Brown, big guard, physical, really athletic, and really challenges defenders. Like at this age, young defenders are not used to that style of a physical guard. Every single place that Zion Puckett or Zavon Puckett went to dominated everywhere, whether it was Alabama, whether it was North Carolina, whether it was at any event that we had in Atlanta, dominated. So it was good to see that. To me, that's important, right? Because if you keep stacking those things up, the consistency level is never going to change, right? Like that's who he is, big physical guard. So it's good to see that we've got another accolade to kind of stack on his profile.
Yeah, and like his continuing to build out his resume was just enough. This was the notch that I needed to be like, all right, I need to start sending some more texts about this guy to, once again, more, national guys or, whoever like needs to know about him. I was like, you guys need to at least do your due diligence and check him out.
Oh, without question. Yeah, without question. I think he's a nationally ranked guy here in the next year for sure. Ryan Kelly from TNBA, also another guy that has been a real prominent player for TNBA South on the Hoop Scene Association. Excited to get him up in there. In fact, a couple TNBA players, South players.
Yeah, they had about 4 players, and they were all they all did their thing throughout the day.
Yeah, go ahead and run through your notes on those guys.
Yeah, I mean, Rylan Kelly just kind of showed a lot of what we saw out of him this spring and summer. I mean, he's a guy that when he gets going, he can be as good of a scorer as anybody in the gym. Yeah. I mean, his first game was a little bit slow, but his second game, he really popped off and generated a lot of buzz. And a lot of people in the gym were kind of like, whoa, look, he had another wow factor to him because nobody really knew who he was because he's from Florida and all of that. But our staff was really familiar with him. So he didn't surprise any of us, but it was just nice to see him do that on this stage. Just like in the same way Puckett, it was like, yeah, not surprising to see him do this. It's just nice to see him live up to our expectations and perform on this stage. He had a really nice day. Omar Morales from that TNBA team, 2026, wing-ish player. He was awesome. Like he didn't have any of the flashy moments like Zyvon Puckett or Rylan Kelly did, but he was really consistent throughout the day. He knows how to play. He makes the right play. He can just, he's really productive, really effective. Like he doesn't have that same like explosive wow factor, but if you watch him enough throughout the day, you're like, wow, this guy's really a key contributor to this team and key contributor to the success.
Yeah, like point guards, like if you just go be a point guard, right, particularly in a camp setting, if you just pass, make the right play, cause a couple turnovers on the defensive end, like it's really easy to stand out. Like sometimes I think some of the young guards get in there like, oh, I got to get like they way overthink it. It's like, dude, just simplify the game and you're going to be fine. You're going to be really good.
Yeah, another guard they had 2 more point guards there that were really great. Trevor Miller, 2027 guard. He was playing up with their TNBA South 15U team. And when I got to see him over the summer, like he wasn't impacting the game or he wasn't, rather, he wasn't putting up the same stats that a guy like Rylan Kelly or Omar Morales did, but he was impacting the game in a similar way. You know, he pure point guard, gets to his spots, has a high IQ, really good feel, gets everybody else involved. So like, you know, when you go, if you go up after a game and check a stat sheet, you're not going to see like, you know, massive point lines or, you know, whatever. But if you're watching the game, you understand how impactful of a player he is. And he showed that again at this camp. Like it was just in every play, rebounding, making the right passes, making the right decisions, kind of has a little bit of wiggle to his game, was able to get to the rim, score, was able to hit some shots. He really impressed a lot of people. He got a lot of just like, you know, arms folded guys standing on the baseline being like, yeah, he could play. Like, and that's like such a big compliment. You know what I'm saying? Like when you get that, that's how you know that you're like a real deal player, you know?
The arms folded sideline guy. That's so good.
You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, and everybody watching this knows exactly what I'm talking about. Go to any basketball event, and if you get just the nod of respect of someone saying he can play, that's a massive win.
That's the gym equivalent of barbershop, right? Like,
yeah, straight up, yeah, 100%. Like,
I love it.
Like that's it. And another guy, the other guy on the TNBA that really came through and showed out was Hassan Everett. He was another point guard, can really play, really good with the ball, really shifty, can score, get hot from the perimeter, can score from multiple levels. Also a really good distributor. He had a really nice day as well.
I love it. I love it. Does that wrap it up? Or we got anybody else from the HSA that we want to go?
Tennessee Tigers. Reed Conway.
Oh, Tennessee Tigers. Yeah.
26 guard. Awesome. He opened it. I saw him in this first game of the day, and he had another one of those, you know, barbershop arms folded kind of nods of approval from a lot of people. He makes good decisions. He can score. He can hit tough shots. He can make the right pass, makes the right reads. He can really run a team. He's a guy that's going to, you know, at least in my estimation, he's a guy that's going to really start to take off around, you know, springtime next year when people start to watch the, you know, 2026 class a little bit more often. He's a guy that can really make some waves in that class.
Well, the Tennessee Tigers, too, always known for having great point guards, like guys that absolutely know how to run a team. In fact, you know, it's fun. I had a great conversation with John Jenkins out in Vegas, who was an OG Tennessee Tiger. And we were talking about when he played for the Tigers. He's like, it changed my life. Like, it really did. So it was really kind of fun to see him. He's now with the G League Ignite team, working with a lot of these young guys.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, and John said he's 31, 33. Anyway, so it's kind of fun to have a full circle moment there with Mr. Jenkins. From the Tennessee Tigers. All right. You know, as is the case always, there's always surprises that come out of this camp because, you know, we may know about a player from just name only, or we, you know, see him having another, you know, a good showing at a different camp and whatnot, and we get him a chance to come in. Like, who are some of the, give me like 3 surprises from the day from the Elite Preview.
Well, I got to say the biggest surprise of the day was a late signee, or a guy that pretty much was a walk-up. I remember, you know, being in the office, kind of putting together some notes, putting together some, you know, just kind of doing all the behind the scenes stuff. And Daniel Paccioni kind of comes in and says, hey, this 6'9" kid just walked in. And he's a 2028. And I was like, what? I was like, I just checking the sign up sheets. I was like, I don't know. I don't see this. Like, who's this guy? And it ended up being Peter Julius, who's going to be at Solid Rock Academy, Georgia Stars guy, 2028, 6'9" forward. He is a beast around the basket. Like, he was not only a surprise in being a late signee, but he was also a surprise and just I didn't really know who he was. And he is a monster around the basket. He plays like a 6'9" young kid. Like he's still a little bit raw, obviously. Like he's got 5 years to develop into being a prospect. But right now he's showed a lot as far as rebounding, tried to dunk everything. Just if you even come near him with a shot, he's gonna swat that out of the way.
Huge hands.
Like,
huge hands.
Big hands. Like he's a guy that just looks like, oh yeah, this guy's gonna be a monster at some point in time.
Yeah. I was excited. I knew about him. I was keeping one. I was holding that in the deck, so I was exciid to see that he showed up there. We did have a couple of 2028 guys too.
Another guy, 2028 guy, Lamar Bird. He's another guy that, you know, he's still got a lot to do, a lot of development to go. But once again, he's got like 5 years down the line. But he's a guy. He's a wing that showed a lot of skill. Like, you know, also kind of has a bit of a smooth game. Can shoot it. Can make plays off the bounce. Does a little bit of everything well. A guy that's going to be someone that makes a name in Georgia circles for years to come.
I like it. All right, wrap us up on the surprises. You got one more?
All right. So this one, not really a surprise because we saw him like a week ago at the fall preview. 2027 forward from South Carolina, Jaden Higgins. I think the reason that he was a surprise because he, last weekend, nobody knew who he was, and he kind of impressed then. But this weekend, he impressed, going up against guys like Peter Julius and going up against guys like Taj Saragba. So it was like, oh, it's him doing it against the people he was doing it against was the surprise. Maybe 6'5" forward, really active, super motor on this guy. Goes after every rebound, tries to dunk everything, very competitive, took those big time matchups against Julius, against Saragba very seriously, active defender, does a lot well. He's a guy that's going to be, someone that you want to know out of the South Carolina area.
I love it. I love it. Anytime we get a guy from South Carolina, I think you got to pay attention. That state consistently pumps out guys. You're like, man, who is that guy? They turn out to be really freaking good. So, all right. There's been a lot to talk about here so far. I want to kind of move a little bit. Let's kind of be a little rapid fire here. And let's talk about, as we move into scholastic play, into high school play, teams will start practicing here in a couple of weeks. In Georgia, I think Alabama, they're even starting this week. What sophomore levels up this season? Maybe rapid fire, like a couple names off for me that really like move from like, oh, I'm a freshman role player to like really being like a prominent guy on a high school team this year. From your opinion.
I think aforementioned Malik Rideout, I think he's going to be. I think he's going to have a really big season with Central Gwinnett. And then also on Central Gwinnett, 6'6", 6'7" wing O'Davion Thompson or O'Davion Thompson. Sorry if I'm conflating those two. But he was really good this Sunday. Like I said, 6'7", long, can shoot it a little bit, can really, he was really assertive and looking to attack the basket, drawing fouls. He's a guy that can really take off at Central Gwinnett this season. I think he's going to open up a lot of eyes as a sophomore. And then another guy, Will Dopfer, I believe is how you pronounce his last name. I'm just realizing that I've never had to say it out loud. I've just written it a lot. But no-brainer, absolute no-brainer. Was one of the best players in the gym on Sunday. Just absolutely fantastic. He just does everything well. Like, he checks so many boxes. He knows how to play. He can play above the rim. He had one of the highlights of the day where he dunked on somebody. Plenty of skill outside, moves well off the ball, defends. At Lambert High School, he's going to have a massive sophomore season. And I think going into next spring, he's going to be a guy that really takes off in terms of recruitment and notoriety and all of that. He just checks all the boxes. Yeah,
when Scott Bracco really had it rolling there at Lambert, he always had guys like Will, right? Like these 6'7", 6'8" guys. Like they would just interchange and they would win, 30 games a year with those kind of players. So I like that selection a lot. All right, what about some freshmen? Who makes a huge debut this year in scholastic play?
Well, I think you have to look at North Oconee, Justin Wise. Sure. I think he's going to have the platform. He's going to have the stage. He has the skill. He showed that he has the skill. So I think he's a guy that can make it.
Ben Shepherd.
He's a guy that can make a really big impact at North Oconee. Another guy, Taj Saragba. I mean, he's going to have the platform at Woodstock. A guy that, another guy outside of the Atlanta area, Fortune Hicks at Glenn Academy. We got to see him at our next gen preview last year. We got to see him at our fall preview last week. He's another guy, 2027. He's going to have a little bit of a platform, a little bit of a stage to kind of show what he can do. And I don't know if his impact will be huge or anything like that, but I think he will start to build some buzz this winter. He's a really good guard that people need to know about. And then a guard that we've been seeing at our next gen preview camps for seems like forever. Like, he's been a top performer the last 2 years at North Cobb Christian, Grant Robich. Another guy, I'm not sure like how much of an immediate impact he'll make. I'm not sure if it'll be like a huge debut, but he's a point guard that people are going to want to know. He's so skilled. He was really good again on Sunday. He performed really well on this big stage. Like, he was a guy that a lot of the camp coaches and a lot of the other people were talking about as a very skilled guard that people need to know about. I think he could make a bit of a splash this winter.
I love it. Let's end it on a trivia question. I love a good trivia question, Josh.
Let's try it.
Name the player that was the #1 pick that played at Glenn Academy. I feel like this is relatively easy.
I have no idea. Truly, I have no idea. Couldn't even begin to.
Kwame Brown.
Oh, yeah. I wouldn't have guessed that. I didn't know he played at Glenn Academy.
Yeah. Kwame Brown.
Did he play somewhere else, or was it always Glenn Academy?
No, he played at Glenn Academy, yeah.
Okay. I didn't know if it was like he played there and then moved somewhere else, or something like that. Like,
yeah. Did I say #1 pick in the draft? I'm the #1 player in the country. Anyways.
Yeah.
Was he #1 pick in the draft? Now I can't remember. Now I'm questioning my own trivia question.
I don't know. That's a historical question that I should have tried to pull out for you. But
this is a long show. My caffeine wore off, and I just need to check myself. So ultimately,
he was #1 at something.
He was #1 player in the country. I do that.
There you go. See.
Well, we got, like I said, we got tons of stuff coming through. You are pounding out all of our elite preview stuff, along with Garrett Tucker, Makai McKinney, Hoops Team W stuff. So busy week. So shout out to you for all the work that you were able to put in. Shout out to all the players that came to all of our camps this year. Awesome. Really fun fall. I can't believe the fall is already over. Like, blows my mind for camp season. So much to like kind of sift through, but every year there's always somebody that no one knows about that really kind of jump starts. And I'm really excited that that's what our preview camp provides for players. So this is good stuff. So make sure you stay logged on to hoopsteam.com. A lot more content. We'll run it through probably the rest of the month for all of our stuff, but especially here for the elite preview camp. This was a good one, really fun one. And Josh, appreciate all the insight all fall long. Appreciate everything you do.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right.